PCN is brought to you in part by the following underwriters.
Hello, and welcome to PACTV Community News, local stories from the South Shore. Tonight, we take you to a Pembroke Police and Fire versus Chamber of Commerce baseball game, stop into the 7th annual croquet tournament in Duxbury, and we pop over to the 2nd annual Kingston Waterfront Festival.
PCN heads to Plymouth as Jay Ash, the Secretary of Housing and Economic Development for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, stopped in to discuss dredging.
We visit Pembroke Town Hall to check out some structural improvements, and we head over to the Alden House to learn about herbs and health.
We have a special guest on set, Darius Coombs, Director of Wampanoag and Eastern Woodlands at Plymouth Plantation, to talk about the PACTV Summer Youth Documentary Program that won a Telly Award last year.
It's going to be a great show, and we begin at Plymouth Town Hall. The Baker administration hosted 2 listening sessions with coastal communities to discuss dredging, with the second of those meetings taking place at Town Hall in Plymouth. The governor aims to put together a plan to eventually implement, which will support local communities and their dredging needs. The Massachusetts Secretary of Housing and Economic Development was on hand to take the temperature from a capacity crowd made up of constituents from Hingham to Fall River and all points in between.
We're trying to come up with a plan that the governor can talk to the legislature about, fund, and then get out to communities and support. We don't have a plan yet, and because we don't have a plan, we haven't been able to justify that plan versus all the other spending needs. But what you should know is that the governor is committed to reserving money for dredging on an annual basis. That hasn't always been the case, and as a result, there's been ebbs and flows, no pun intended, on dredging funding. So what we do know is that we're going to spend somewhere between 300% or 400% more than we did last year, but we didn't spend a lot last year, so it's really not a lot to be proud of, but it is reflective of our priority to find more money to support dredging. I think we spent $1 million last year. We're going to spend $4 million this year, and we hope to be able to make a justification against all those other programs to find even more money. As we went around the communities to talk to them about their economic development needs, we started to hear about dredging. Now, of course, we didn't hear inland about dredging, but as we were on coastal communities, we did. And we focused on a big economic development plan, and now we're narrowing it down to particular silos that we need to worry about. We're talking about small business internally, we're talking about life sciences industries, and water, marine activity is an important part of the Commonwealth who we are. Dredging, we heard from lots of communities, needs to be done, and so we're trying to get caught up and then have a plan to be, meet all the needs going forward. So I've already had individual meetings with some communities. I've been to Manchester and Wellfleet. So North Shore is almost as high up as I could go, and down south almost as far as I could go. We thought this time that we should bring everybody together and see who knew what and see if there were common themes or not. We got an awful lot of this. I have 2 pages of notes, really good things that we're going to follow up on. There was a lot about permitting, the difficulty in permitting, the lack of coordination between multiple levels. There was also concerns about being able to afford dredging projects. There was some discussion about what economic development means in the dredging process. So we take all that in, we'll balance those against some other things that maybe didn't come up, and we'll try to come up with a sensible plan. I live by a strategy of you plan the work and then you work the plan. When you're planning the work, you got to get stakeholders involved, and these people that came here today and sat here for 3 hours, some of them traveled 2 or 3 hours to be here, were really committed, and so they ought to be heard and they ought to have their contributions fit into our planning.
Boy, north to south, that's a lot of coastline to cover.
It is.
Were a boat owner or are a boat owner, so you know what it's like. What does this mean to just the regular person?
Well, I think the regular person doesn't understand how important dredging is and how often you really need to keep up with it. Both for recreational vehicles and for commerce. We have so many fishermen, lobstermen along our coastlines that dredging is something that if you don't keep up with it, it gets ahead of you. And I'm so glad that they're doing this, and the town of Plymouth is really on board with this. And I know our town manager is pretty excited about what's going to happen with the state.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. The nice weather showed up just in time for the 2nd annual Kingston Waterfront Festival over the weekend. If you haven't been, the event is a rare combination of business and pleasure. Local businesses set up booths on the lawn at Grays Beach Park, and people came down to take in the sights and sounds, whether it was boat races, martial arts exhibitions, or just getting an ice cream made with the help of liquid nitrogen. We caught up with the chairman of this year's festival to get all the details.
The Kingston Business Association put this on last year based on a recommendation from the selectmen in town. Elaine Fiore said, hey, we need a waterfront festival. So the Kingston Business Association said, sure, we'll put this thing together. And we just went and decided we need to find visibility for local businesses in Kingston. And with local businesses in Kingston, meet the community. So let's draw events like Big Ryan, who's performing in the background, does stories for the kids. Or we'll have Thurston Academy doing martial arts demonstrations. That gets the kids, that gets the families, and then they say, oh, what's this local business over here, like Sub-Zero? Sub-Zero is a liquid nitrogen ice cream that's going to be going into the Kingston collection soon. So that gives them a marketing presence of here's we're coming, and the kids come, they love ice cream, so it's a lot of value proposition for the local community. We get in touch with anyone who we see storefronts around Kingston, storefronts we know to just show up and say, hey, do you want to be a part of this? And people are really supportive, who are local business owners, that's who we target. And we just look for whoever's got storefronts in the town, whether it's down Route 3A or on Summer Street, or even in the mall itself. So that's how we get vendors.
Sullivan Brothers has been sponsoring it both years now, and yeah, we have a setup on the far end down there, and it's great to come out with all the local business owners. Everybody's got a stand set up, so they're handing out free t-shirts and stuff to do with their businesses, and reaching out to people is a big part of any local business, really. You want to have a good relationship with your customers, and then yeah, you want them to feel like they're kind of walking into one of their neighbors' houses, I guess, when they walk into your business. You don't want them to feel like they're coming in just to buy a car, which is always a nightmare for people, So that's one of our goals on a daily basis, and an event like this where we can just have some fun and hand out some stuff is always good.
As far as the experience, we want visibility for the businesses, but we also want people to enjoy Grays Beach. This is a great park. And we have a regatta here, so people come to see the regatta. And we want people to enjoy everything that Kingston's natural resources here have to offer. This is a perfect, ideal setting. You got a beautiful backdrop with Kingston Bay. You have local food vendors like Alden Park. You have Pour Garden is here pouring craft brews. We have Mamma Mia's here. So it's a big draw of, all right, let's get some lunch down here and take your kids to the park and all that.
The Chamber and businesses of Pembroke came together with members of the police and fire departments to host the 8th annual Pembroke Days. The event is meant to unite businesses in town with members of the community and to fundraise for local services. Community members enjoyed a softball game, bounce houses, face painting, and up-close views of police and fire trucks. PCN joined in on all the fun.
Well, we're at the Lieutenant McPhillips Field on the Matakeeson Street Field Complex in Pembroke. And for 8 years now, the Pembroke Chamber of Commerce has been playing the Pembroke Police and Fire Department in a charity softball game. It started 8 years ago. The Chamber wanted to try to help one of its members who had had a motorcycle accident, tried to raise a few dollars, and the only people who showed up for the game were the players on each team. So it's grown over the years, and we're really proud of what it has now become, in which it's involved into a day event where the townspeople, families, kids come down, enjoy a lot of the things we have, like bounce houses, face painting. We have the Touch a Truck with a lot of the big equipment in the town, fire engines, police cars. It's become a real community event. We're really excited about what it's become.
This is an event I look forward to every year. Today is really about the community. It's everybody getting together from the Chamber of Commerce, all the local businesses, and having a good partnership with our police and fire to make sure they get out to the community. The kids start to understand, who's in their town, who's taking care of them, who's always there if they need them. And one great thing is we have a lot of parties that come together and are providing great services here, and it's just good to show it to them.
I think we had over 20 sponsors this year involved, and we're just so grateful for all of our members that want to contribute and give back to the community in the form that they are. It allows us to raise money for specific charities every year, and this year we're donating a lot of money to the Firehouse Food Pantry in Pembroke. They have an annual budget of about $15,000. And it's strictly a volunteer. In fact, some of the volunteers for the Firehouse Food Pantry contribute to paying their bills. They work for nothing, but they contribute to the entity to help it provide food for people, provide care for people, and we're going to try to come close to giving them a third of what they need during the course of the year. At least we're hoping we get to that point. We'll also be giving money to the Pembroke Police to fund their Halloween safety program. That was a great success last year. There were cruisers, it seemed, in every neighborhood, making sure everybody was safe. And then the same amount of money will go to the Fire Relief Fund for firemen in Pembroke who've been injured and need some financial help. We all feel that a town like Pembroke is only as strong as its schools and its business community. And it's important for the business people. They're looking to serve the community. Once the community supports the business, it's important for the business to give back to the community. And really, in this particular example, Pembroke Day, that's exactly what our members are trying to do. Give back a little bit to the people that support them in town.
The traditional croquet tournament at the King Caesar House in Duxbury continued this year despite some inclement weather to start the day. The fundraising event brought in a capacity crowd to the front lawn of the house, but there was just enough room out there for us to get a glimpse of the action. Not even the ominous skies that hung over the King Caesar House in Duxbury were enough to deter a sizable turnout for the 7th annual croquet tournament. Since 2011, every year around this time, you'll see large swaths of people dressed in creative white outfits that look like they were taken from a bygone era as they knock croquet balls through wickets on an uneven playing surface, all in the name of raising money for the Duxbury Rural and Historical Society. If you can believe it, the social component of this fundraising gala somehow outweighs the methods that the players are supposed to employ in order to win.
There is a strategy. You have to play fast, but it's hard because you meet the people and you're having so much fun and you just want to, make it through the wicket, and you never know what's going to happen. So that's the best part about it. You never know who's going to win. It could be the worst people ever, and they'll win.
As a former champion, Reagan Peterman understands that while winning the tournament equals a year's worth of bragging rights, the purpose of the day supersedes all of that.
It's all about raising money for these beautiful houses and the historical society that's so great in town that keeps the history in Duxbury relevant, which I love. So I love this event because of that. That's my favorite part of it. And everyone has such a good time. If you just walk around and look at everyone playing, everyone is having such a great time.
And those folks walking around may or may not have noticed a new addition to the festivities, a pair of local accomplished artists painting oil renditions of the action out in the field. With the Duxbury Art Association celebrating its 100-year anniversary, this seemed like the perfect opportunity to team up with the Historical Society as a dual fundraiser.
Yeah, we wanted to add that as part of our 100th celebration. It's a fundraiser for both the Historic Society and the Duxbury Art Association. So they came to paint the scenes of the croquet tournament. So it's a fun event. So we wanted to be able to capture that and hopefully incent someone to purchase that as part of a silent auction. And hopefully it does some fundraising for both organizations.
While we may have missed much of the action from earlier in the day, we did make it for the final shootout and the award ceremonies, featuring Best Dressed Man, Best Dressed Woman, Best Dressed Team, Shootout winner, and of course, the team that won it all. A fantastic ending to a day that may have been in doubt before it even began because of the weather. It's almost hard to believe that when the day first started, there was rain coming down and the grass was wet when they took the field. But as they say, neither rain, sleet, nor snow can keep the best croquet players down. Reporting from Duxbury, Brian Sullivan, PACTV Community News.
Over this summer, Pembroke's Town Hall saw some major renovations take place, but you probably wouldn't have noticed them just by driving by. As a way of making the place more streamlined and efficient, a few of the offices inside received some much-needed facelifts. We spoke with Town Administrator Ed Thorne to get the inside information.
From the outside, Pembroke's Town Hall looks just about the same as it ever has. However, the same couldn't be said about the inside during a few weeks in July. In fact, with offices getting shifted around and closed off for construction, it was a bit like a game of musical chairs.
What we had up until this past week was we had one office for the building department, and then we actually moved the Conservation Commission administrative assistant from a small room, which now doesn't exist, into the building department as a precursor to what we're doing here. And then we're going to move the planning board, which is on the first floor, we're going to move them up to the second floor, and then bring the Board of Health, which is part of this consolidation effort, down to the first floor.
This outline on the floor is all that's left of what used to be a tiny office separate from all of the others. New carpet will cover those lines as the two small rooms expand to one large one. This doorway here will also connect this room to the office next to it, while one of the doorways will be removed in place of a service window for both offices. And the good news for the bean counters out there is that this project isn't breaking the bank by any stretch.
With a minimum cost of the construction, it's actually costing the town nothing, because all we're doing is consolidating existing salaries. So we didn't add any new personnel to this. And it just makes for a more efficient operation. Like I said, now we don't have to worry about closing offices due to vacation or sickness.
While life in the office may have seemed a little topsy-turvy with all the work that was going on, at least it was a short-lived experience.
Well, we're really moving at light speed right now. I mean, we've had folks work over the weekend on that. We're doing all the work internally, so we're saving the taxpayer a bunch of money on this. And we expect to have a lot of the moving done by the end of this week.
At the rate the work is being done right now, this project should be completed by the time this story airs. So by then, we'll probably be looking at an even more efficient town hall. In Pembroke, Brian Sullivan, PCN. The Alden House hosted a demonstration with historian Leslie Evans, which explored the historic importance of herbs in cooking and medicine and how they can be used today. The event allowed visitors to partake in food and beverage made from herbs. PCN stopped by to get this story.
Other things that you would be surprised that they would have.
Today we have a whole room set up to represent all the plants that would have been used for both medicine and for cooking in the 18th century in a house like the Alden homestead. So really from before the 18th century, as soon as New England was colonized by Europeans, they brought plants with them that would have been useful. And that's what we're trying to share with people today, just some examples of what that might have been. I just love introducing people to the idea of how plants were used historically and how important they were. It amazes me endlessly to see how people coped with the challenges that they encountered when they settled New England, and well up into the 19th and early 20th century, when people were really struggling to cope with a lot of different diseases without knowledge of bacteria or any of the modern drugs that we have, and how they used plants to help with that. So it's exciting to me to share that with people, and fun too. And then we have some hands-on things here today that people can try so they can take something home themselves. It's a chance for me to be able to combine my love of gardening and my interest in history and a passion for teaching about both those things. So I get a lot of satisfaction about opening up some new ideas to people. Maybe they'd like to go home and try growing some of these plants themselves, or making some of the things that we talk about, using the plants in their cooking, and just learning more about them. I think just being aware of our community's past, about how people settled this land and how hard it was to do that, how just to raise enough food to keep from starving to death and have a house that kept you from freezing to death. Those were the first priorities. But how did they cope when somebody was sick? Or how did you prevent people from becoming sick? And having an understanding of that gives us an appreciation for what went on in our town before, and maybe helps people think about preserving places like this, like the Alden House and other historic properties in the community. Well, I just like to encourage people to come and visit the Alden Homestead or other historic houses that might be near them. A lot of homes do have gardens and interpret either the food history or the history of medicine, and just explore it. If you're interested, your local historic resources are there for you.
So pleased to welcome to set today Darius Coombs, who's the director of the Wampanoag and Eastern Woodlands at Plymouth Plantation. Welcome, Darius.
Thank you.
We have at PACTV have been lucky enough to work with the Plymouth Plantation on a couple of different documentaries over the past couple of years, and both of which have won Telly Awards. Now, just for people who don't know what a Telly Award is, it's an award, it's a premier award honoring outstanding content for TV, cable, digital, and streaming, and non-broadcast distribution. The Tellys is widely known and respected. It's a national and international competition, and we get over 12,000 entries from 50 states and 5 countries. Yep. So to win a Telly is a pretty big deal.
And to win 2, that's even special, all right?
And to win 2 is even more special. Now, last summer, you worked with our kids in the documentary program and created a People of the First Light, Thanksgiving, a Native Perspective. Talk about that.
Yeah, 7th and 8th graders from towns around Plymouth. And I remember getting an email from Donna Rodriguez, and she goes, do you mind coming in and hearing these kids' ideas on doing a small documentary during the summer at Plymouth Plantation down the Wampanoag home site? I'm like, sure. So I came in, I talked to the kids, and I asked them what they had for ideas, and they didn't have too many. So I asked them, is this going to be a personal project, one-on-one? Is this going to be a group project? They said, we want to do a group project.
Yeah.
Oh, so I said, okay. So when do you want to start filming? Next week, I think they said.
They give you a lot of lead time.
I'm like, next week,
yeah.
And you guys want to do a group project.
About Thanksgiving, right?
Well, we didn't get that far yet.
Okay.
So we were just brainstorming ideas, and that's when I thought, the easiest thing for you guys to do is to do something on Thanksgiving, because that's what we've been doing at the museum for, I don't know, over 50 years, 60 years.
Right.
And, but we'll put a little bit of a twist on it, It's not just Thanksgiving.
Right.
What I wanted them to do is go down to the Wampanoag home site and interview Native people and get the Native perspective on Thanksgiving.
Which is very different from
it's a little different.
What a lot of people think, right?
Yeah. For us as Native people, we give Thanksgiving pretty much every day.
Right, right.
For being here on Mother Earth. And Thanksgiving today takes on a little bit of a different meaning, because when the colonists first got here, they did learn how to plant corn, and that first year they had a very large harvest. And we think they invited Massasoit to come along to a feast. Massasoit was the one who made the treaty with the English in 1621.
Okay.
And when he came late September, early October, he brought 90 of his men to this feast.
Okay.
And that feast went on for 3 days.
Wow.
It's a 3-day feast.
Wow.
You think about
3-day Thanksgiving.
And you think a lot of the pictures of that feast, you see the colonists outnumber the Native people.
Right.
But it's pretty much the opposite, Yeah. And they never, ever mentioned turkey being at that feast.
Right, right, which is a big misnomer that it was turkey. It was some kind of fowl, but it wasn't turkey.
It was, could have been duck, could have been partridge, could have been quail.
Yeah.
We definitely know there was deer there, because Massasoit sent his men out hunting, and they came back with 5 deer.
So you had the kids do this documentary based on the Native perspective of Thanksgiving and how it wasn't the way we thought it was. How do you think they did?
They did a really great job. I told them that some of the answers that you're going to hear from the Native people might not what you think it's going to be for an answer.
Right.
For us, a lot of time it's not considered to be a big celebration. It's for us, it's maybe a day of mourning.
Right.
We just want to recognize the ones we've lost in the past.
Yes.
It's also, like I said, we give thanks every day for being here.
Right.
And, so we're at the museum that day. A lot of us work there, and you're going to see a lot of Native people wearing black face paint and such, just to recognize the ones we lost in the past.
Right, right.
But it's also time we spend a lot of time with our families. So.
Right, which is wonderful. Now, we also did another documentary with you. It was about paddling through history, which talked about creating a mashun, which is
a mashun, meaning boat in our language,
Yep.
right? And how that came about to be is back in 2010. We went down to the Smithsonian National Museum of American Indian as a program, as a field trip. And when we walked into the museum, we saw a circle of canoes from the Americas. But we did not see the most common boat you would have seen in the Americas, which is a dugout canoe.
Out of a tree.
Out of a tree, which is all burnt out.
Yep.
And our boats are ranging anywhere from a 2-man boat to boats big enough to carry over 40 men. So myself, it was a no-brainer with Smithsonian affiliate. Why not donate a canoe, a mashun, to the Smithsonian?
Right.
to the National Museum. And so I wrote the registrar, and they said, we would love to have one.
Right.
And that's how it came about. And we also got a small grant. We brought on Native scholars and what the boat means for diplomacy for us as Native people back then, transportation, how we got around, you know.
Right.
So
and we put it into a documentary.
we made it. There's a documentary
Which
that
you
we
won a Telly Award for.
We won.
Right?
We won our first Telly Award.
Yeah. And it is now showing at the Smithsonian, correct?
It's on a rotating exhibit.
Yep.
It's in and out.
With
It's
the actual machine that you built.
a 16-foot machine,
Yeah.
main canoe. It holds 3 people. And what's kind of special about it is it's not just a boat being delivered down to the Smithsonian. Congressman Keating spoke about this in the House of Representatives.
Nice.
And what it means for Native people in general.
Right.
Because a lot of people think there aren't any people living on the East Coast anymore.
And there are.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of you. Now you're going to, the Mayflower 2 is going to come back in 2019 from being renovated in Mystic, Connecticut.
Yeah.
You are going to create a 40-foot machine to go out and meet them? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, we've been having numerous meetings at the plantation on what we want to do about 2020 coming up, and we have the Mayflower being away at Mystic being restored right now.
Yep.
And for a Native program, the Wampanoag program being there over 40 years, so we always want to have Native presence. Because we've been here for over 12,000 years.
Yes.
And so when Mayflower comes back in 2019 into Plymouth Harbor, we want to be out in those waters.
Yep.
When they come back.
That's right.
To show Native presence.
That's right.
So what we plan on doing next year is building a 40-foot boat, machine,
Yeah.
which could hold 20 people, which will be considered to be the largest canoe machine in New England today.
Wow.
Once we have it completed.
That's terrific. And have you already started the process of building it?
We are in search of a log right now big enough.
Okay. It's going to take a big one, right, to do that?
Extremely big tree.
Yeah.
Well, back then we had boats that would hold 40 men.
Right.
But you have to put yourself back in time.
Yeah.
We had trees over 150 foot in height, the white pines over 6 foot wide. So we have like 3 different recordings of Europeans seeing 40-man boats being sailed out to Nantucket Island.
Wow.
But like I said, you have to put yourself back in time. We don't have those trees around anymore.
No, they're not. Right.
So we have a major search going out right now to trying to locate a 40-foot.
Yeah, and you have to have the right type of tree. It's got to be able to work. And then you burn it out and you create a 40-foot machine that'll hold 20 people, and you will be there when the Mayflower 2 sails back.
We will be out in the waters.
You will be in
day,
the waters.
that
That's
day.
right. And it's symbolic as well as everything else.
Well, this show Native presence that we're still here.
That's right.
We've been around this area for over 12,000 years, you know.
And given so much.
Sure.
Yes, in very many ways. Well, thank you so much. This went too fast. Congratulations on your tally. We hope to be working with you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed the local stories shown here tonight. PCN is on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So look for us there or watch all our episodes on PACTV's Prime channel found at our website. Have a great week, and we'll see you here next week for more PACTV Community News.